it a minute to catch up. Maybe. John chapter 21. A couple of things I had that I was going to share this afternoon. One, when I think of Bob, and we shared several things. Andy and I were sharing a couple of things sitting here. We apologize for doing that. Some of you noticed we were having a little conversation while we were trying to kind of narrow down which ones we were going to share. And Bob reminds me of a joke that was told by Grady Nutt. When I say Grady Nutt, how many people in this audience even know who that is? Wow, I just aged myself. Grady Nutt was the minister on Hee Haw. Therefore, I aged myself, okay? But I love this joke. Story's told of these two robbers that decide they're going to take advantage of a poor little Amish guy out on the outskirts of town. So they go out to his house. One guy's in the getaway car. The other guy goes inside. He goes inside and comes running back out in a moment and says, "Get out of here." He said, "What do you mean? Get out of here." So he starts down and said, "What happened? You told me he was a pacifist." "He is. He's Amish." "Well, here's what happened. I got in there, everything just like you said, safe just like where you said it, got there, and the safe counter, opened up. Right as I opened up, I heard someone behind me go, and I turned around, and there's a gentleman standing here in a nightshirt, a goatee, and he had a shotgun in his hand. And he looked at me, and he said, 'Sir, I would not harm thee, but you're standing where I'm about to shoot.'" Sometimes you've got to kind of make sure that you communicate clearly and that you share what you want to share. You know, and there are times in our lives when that's not as easy as others. You're tired. I'm tired. Can I get an amen on that? Come on, you can admit that. It's been a long day. It's been a good day. It's been a good day, but I'm tired, and I'm not done yet. I got another session after service tonight, but that's okay. It's all good. But what I want to share with you is when people get tired, sometimes they revert back to what's comfortable. You know, and especially when they've actually been involved in something that has really brought them to a really low place in their life. In John 21, you've got Peter about as low as he's ever been. This is before he has any kind of reconnection, re-encounter with Jesus. He's seen and knows that Jesus is resurrected, but they have not as of yet to have a conversation. And this is probably one of my favorite moments in history biblically. Because I can just identify with he's worn out, he's confused, he's at the point in his life when he's going, "I've just blown it. I've denied 3 times, like he told me I wasn't going to do it, and now he's alive. What am I going to do?" I won't mention the name of the author because I don't always agree with everything, but in one of his books, he kind of takes this story and says, Peter does the only thing he knew how to do at that point. Everything else. He couldn't be an apostle anymore. He'd blown that. He couldn't be a good friend. He'd blown that. He turns, if you look in John 21 with me, reading in verse 1, here's what Peter does. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and in this way he showed himself. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. And Simon Peter said to them, "I am going fishing." Is there something that's your comfort place? Something that you know you can do no matter what else happens in your world. It may be, for some, it may be cooking in the kitchen. It may be going to the fishing hole. It may be just going off to yourself, finding a good book. I don't know what your comfort place is, but for Peter, it had been on that boat for many years because that was something he knew he could do. There was no doubt in Peter's mind, I'm a fisherman. I was born a fisherman. My dad raised me to be a fisherman. I'm going to the lake. Downside about this experience, we're going with you also. They went out and immediately got into the boat. That night they caught nothing. Now what? I'm a terrible apostle. I'm a horrible friend. And I can't catch a cold. Where do you go from there? Caught nothing all night long. You see, there's a moment that's about to happen with the master that's a tender moment. There are reasons for that. Compassion is the word that's used about him throughout the Gospels. There's something about Jesus. He could see what someone needed in a way that sometimes they weren't even aware. I think Peter knew what he needed. I just don't think he thought it was possible. After what I've done, can I ever go back? I mean, I didn't just deny him. I said I wasn't. And he told me that I wasn't, or that I was going to. And I said, I'd rather die. I can hear Peter. You remember? I tried. He told me to bring the sword. Soldiers came in. I took it out. I missed. You hear what I'm saying? I think he missed. I don't think he was aiming for the servant of the high priest's ear. Right near the ear is the neck. I'm a lousy swordsman too. What am I going to do? You see, this side of Jesus, in this moment, is something he can see others' needs and meet them in a way that sometimes we're totally unaware. The purpose of this moment is twofold. Number one, it's to confront Peter's failures. Jesus does not overlook the fact that Peter failed, that he had denied him. Now, you can construe whatever you want to about the conversation that they have when Jesus comes to him later in the letter, and I don't have time to really go fully through all of it. I'm going to go through part of it here in a minute as to how he gets to him. But the major part, the place, and look back in Matthew 26. I think it is. Matthew 26 is at least Matthew's account of the failure. Beginning about verse 69. Yep. I want you to hear this as I read. I'm going to read 69 through 75. Now Peter sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came in saying, "You also were with Jesus of Galilee." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you are saying." And he went and gone out to the gateway. Another girl saw him and said to those who were there, "The fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth." But again he denied with an oath, "I do not know the man." And a little later, those who stood by came up and said to Peter, "Surely you're also one of them, for your speech betrays you." Then he began to curse and swear, saying, "I do not know the man." Immediately, a rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the word of Jesus, who had said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. So he went out and wept bitterly. There's a parallel moment going on here this same night between Peter and Judas, and we don't have time to consider Jesus, but Peter is at that point where he has utterly failed and he doesn't know what to do. And that's a dangerous place to be. I've known way too many folks I've heard recently of individuals that when they get to the point that there's nothing they can do, they make bad choices. Peter's choice is, I'm going to do the only thing I understand. See, the place of his failure, if you'll notice, there's kind of an agreement between, he's outside in the courtyard. He's not with Jesus where he's outside. It says even later that he goes a little further. He's gone out to the gateway. Not only is outside the courtyard, he walks outside the wall, hoping to get away from this connection with Jesus. It's the pain of his failure. And it's the fact that he realizes, I've done the exact thing that Jesus said that I shouldn't. And see, Jesus is going to confront Peter. That's what this is about his failure and about his foolishness. But the way he confronts him is what's so powerful. Because he didn't have to tell Peter what he had done. You catch it sometimes, the way we help correct people is we just really rub it in. They know, but we got to bring it up again and again and mention it and make sure that and we really go through the details. Jesus didn't see the need to come to Peter and said, I saw you standing there, not far away, there near warming yourself by the fire, as one of the other gospel accounts gives it, but you're with the wrong crowd. And he found Peter. See, what happens is Jesus kind of makes a provision for this correction. Number one, he finds Peter. And in verse number 5, if you would, let's go back to John 21. In my Bible, get back over there. John 21, verse 5. Then Jesus said to them, children, have you any food? It's interesting. The scripture doesn't say. I'm going to make an assumption. I think Jesus knew they didn't have anything. And I think he knew that because that's how Jesus realized Peter was as low as he could possibly go, and it was time for him to have a face-to-face. They answered him one word. How'd you do last night? Not good. No. We're fishermen, but we weren't last night. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. Now, I'm sorry. I've seen Frank and Elliot. Elliot, you have a depth finder or a fish finder on your boat? I know Frank's got one. Elliot, I've seen Elliot. Those are really cool deals. I think it's really cool. I think it's unfair to the fish. Just saying. You get out there and you're supposed to be fishing. What fun is it if you find them? You just throw something in amongst them. They don't have a choice. Oh, dinner. The apostles didn't have that. But I can be enough to tell you that if they're not on the left side of the boat, there's not a real good chance in that slow part that there's going to be fish on the right side of the boat. They'd been there all night long, probably in that spot. That may have been Peter's. I'm guessing if I'm going fishing and I haven't been in a while, I'm going to the best hole. I'm going to the place where I've always been able to catch fish before because that's why I want to go. I want that joy of doing what I've always been able to do, and I want to be dragging them. I want to be bringing them into the boat, fish after fish. There's no conversation here. It just says, so they cast. When you've tried everything you can try, you just do whatever he says. See, that's the best place to be with Jesus. When you get to the point that you're tired of trying everything you've tried and it being unsuccessful, and you just do what he tells you to do, things work a little bit better. He started to obey Jesus. And what happens as a result of that, they cast, not able to draw it in because the multitude of fish. Therefore the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. Now when Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he'd removed it. Traditional fishing. I'm going to be comfortable out here. Outer garment, throws it on, drags the net with it, plunges into the sea. The other disciples come in the little boat, for they were not far from land, but about 200 cubits, dragging the net with the fish. Then as soon as they come to land, they saw a fire of coals, and their fish, and laid it on the bread. And Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish which you have caught. Simon Peter went up and dragged the net to land full of large fish. This was not you. These were large fish. 153. I've spent, at least in one time prior, I didn't do it this time, I didn't do it this afternoon, but I've spent time trying to figure out why 153. There's no multiple of 7, 12. No special indication of, that's just, all I've got is, that's just a lot of fish. Ever had 153 fish in a boat? I knew I shouldn't ask Elliot that. I may have to ask you about that story later. 153 fish. I've never seen that. I've been to an aquarium. I hadn't seen that many fish. 153 fish in their boats. They're dragging them up on here, but the whole thing, the whole time, the only phrase in Peter's mind, I bet it wasn't about the fish. It's the Lord. Oh, no. That's why I came to the lake. I've been trying to get away from him since that night. I don't know if you realize this or not, but too many people are trying to get away from Jesus and don't even know it. They'll go anywhere, they'll do anything. He'll just keep looking. He'll keep pursuing. I kind of think of this in a metaphor. He'll show up on the shoreline when you've sat there and fished all night long and bring you the greatest catch you've ever had, and you won't want to say a word to him because you know the conversation that you're about to have is not one that you're going to like. Because you've got to admit to somebody that what you did was wrong. Fish all night long. I know one of the things we used to do a lot when we fished, it was because you get hungry when you fish. Now, it's not literally because you're expending a lot of energy. I don't know if it's the anticipation of maybe catching. I remember Frank and I used to go over with the crew over at Cherokee. It was trout fishing. I was horrible. I'm not a very good fisherman anyway, but trout are smart. They hide. They can see you coming. Frank said it was my orange fishing gear. I don't know. That could have been part of it. Trout didn't show up in my boat. But here's Peter, and he's doing this, and he's tired, and he's hungry, and he's frustrated, and he's mad at himself, and he doesn't want to talk to Jesus. What did Jesus do? He feeds him. Come on, Jesus. Really? Bring me some of the fish you caught. Come over here. I can remember those moments when my dad, that come over here moment that I knew this is going to be a conversation. Come eat breakfast. What 11 verse 12 says, yet none of the disciples dare ask him, who are you? Knowing that it was the Lord. Jesus then came, took the bread and gave it to them, and likewise the fish. Bread, fish. I even tried 153, 4,000, 5,000. There's still no way to link any of those numbers. I'm just intriguing to me. But he comes, he's brought all of this. It's way more than they can even. It could be that this is going to provide. Remember, one of the ways they provided for themselves was with fishing and tent making. He's getting ready to leave. I don't know. There are all kinds of possibilities here that the Bible doesn't tell us. You're good. After he feeds him, he frees him. That's the discussion. It's the third time Jesus has showed himself to the disciples. Third time. We know Thomas was the only one who wasn't there one of those times, and this is the third time. This is the first time, however, that he has a conversation direct. The other conversations, the first two times, are somewhat generic. He gives some instruction. This time, he's eyeball to eyeball with Peter, and Peter goes, now what? I love the question. This is, again, just this. Simon Peter, or Simon first, Simon son of Jonah, do you love me? And it's hard to tell contextually more than these. Some people have tried, one scholar tried to make it about the fish. I think that had absolutely nothing to do. That's a lot of fish. One scholar tried to make it about, you love fishing, you're going back to doing this. You love me more than these. Is it Jesus' great illustration? I can give you all the fish you'll ever need. Is that what it's about, Peter? Do you love me more than these? Talking about the other disciples. That's a real tough question because everybody knows. You can't tell me they don't know. We know John is your best friend. But just the concept, do you love me more than these? Peter's answer, yes, Lord, you know that I know there's a lot made about the difference in the response that Peter gives and the question that Jesus asked, because they're two different words in the Greek language and they do mean different things. Jesus' question is, do you love me and will you love me? Will you, whatever I need, will you do for me? I like you, Lord. Now that's weird to me. I've thought about this. Maybe I'm over. If I'm Peter, I'm wanting to get back in good with the Lord. My answer is going to be whatever Jesus asks. We know we do that with folks sometimes. Love you. Whatever's twice times, three times agapao. I adore you. I tried to kill a man for you. Didn't you understand that? And you told me to put my sword up and you've confused me. And I don't understand now what I'm supposed to be doing. Jesus asked him 3 times. That is no accident. Peter denies him 3 times, asks him 3 times. The 3rd time, Jesus kind of condescends to his level and asks him, do you like me? I like you. Now this is unique because with guys, well, I think sometimes we forget this is a guy moment. Men from Mars, women from Venus. How many of you read that book? Oh, come on. So only 3, 4. All the guys, all the ladies need to read that book. Couples need that. Great. Kind of gives you a vision in each other's brain. Remember, here's the difference when 2 guys, they'll slap each other upside the head. 15 minutes later, they're enjoying a sandwich together. Because they just put it behind them. 2 ladies don't do that quite as easily. Just a different way we think about things, the way we struggle, the way we deal and process stuff. But here's Jesus telling Peter, I want to give you an opportunity to make things right. Because what happens after this moment is phenomenal. When Jesus does not condemn him. And this thing that's tough for some of us, you go to that encounter with Jesus and Peter, he never once says, I saw what you did that I told you was going to do. It's never. He knew Peter was dealing with, that it was eating him up. What he wanted to let Peter know, the door's still open, buddy. I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere. If you're willing to do what I ask you to do, do you get that in the question? That's what the question means. How many times did Peter heard Jesus say, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. I ask you to take a sword. I ask you to put that sword up. I warned you that you were going to deny me. If you'd listen to me, Peter, you wouldn't get in all of these situations you get into. Because Peter eventually kept his promise. Maybe this has already dawned on you, but on the day of Pentecost, when Peter stood up, Peter kept the promise that he told Jesus, I am willing to die for you. The promise of this moment is this. He was willing to sacrifice himself. Jesus even told him, most assuredly I say to you, when you were younger, you girded yourself and walked where you wished. When you are old, you'll stretch out your hands and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish. There's sometimes you don't want to hear what's going to happen. It's going to cost you, Peter. If you continue to follow me, this he spoke, signifying by what death he would glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said to him, simple challenge. It was the first words he said to him along the seaside. It's not the last words he says to him, because he does tell him to go into all the world and preach the gospel. But what he says is, follow me then. If you're going to do this, let go of that self-pity. Quit kicking yourself around and get back up and follow me. Because you can do this. Remember, he changed his name from Simon to Petros, rock. And the way he was going to do it was by service and surrender. Sometimes we'll get in situations we don't know what in the world the future holds. Information that just rocks our world. A choice we've made, something we had absolutely no involvement in the choice, and it's a situation we've got to face. And Jesus is going to ask us the same question he asked Peter. Do you love me? I mean, do you really? Do you really love me? The answer depends on what we do. That morning in the upper room, when the Spirit descended and Peter received the gift of the Holy Spirit, the cloven tongues like as a fire, and he started speaking in a new language. It was the first moment in his life ever, when he spoke, it was not Peter speaking. See, that's the beauty of this. He's finally letting God speak through him. 150 fish, 3,000 people. Follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Peter said, I think I get it. It's not about me anymore. It's about him. Now here's where this takes a little twist. Man, y'all been patient. We can get in the way so easily because it can be so much about us. What we see, what we think, what we feel, until we. And it is a process, and I'm way early in it. It is a process to get out of God's way and let him do what he's capable of doing if we just let him use us. 150 fish, 3,000 people. What is it for you? What is it God could do if you just let him? Have you even given that a thought of saying, God wants me? There's something that I'm the only one that can do it for him. He sees that in each of us. Tonight, maybe it's time to quit playing church. Maybe it's time to say, okay, I'm ready, Lord. Now, what I'm going to warn you of before is when Peter walked into the garden, he thought he understood what Jesus wanted him to do. And I believe the whole sword thing was a test. Okay, he brought the sword. I want to tell you to put it up. Because that was the thing that confused Peter, I think, more than anything else. Because he was going, wait a minute, I was supposed to bring it, not supposed to bring it now. I don't get it. That's the part of it that is most important. When you don't get it, but you do it because he said so. That's when it starts making sense. And that's when you start making a difference. If we can help any way tonight on your journey with Jesus. Initial obedience, rededication, some struggle, you're kind of like Peter. You've carried it one too many times to the bank, and you want somebody else to help haul it back up the hill. That's why we have this song. That's why we have this moment. If you come while we stand and while we sing.